stage? Anything you want to ask? Or any query from your school classroom or any test or exam or any papers that you have been solving lately? I will strongly suggest that you also look at NCERT boards exam papers, CBSE boards, sorry, CBSE board exam papers, and many many test papers or practice papers, sample papers are also out there on internet. So just take a look, because one difference that is there in the board exams question paper and the question papers that you normally see in school or in tests, or even the weekly test that I take, is the structure. So we test your concepts from every corner of the syllabus when I as and when I teach the chapter. But the structure is also very important to have a practice of. Okay, so if you are familiar with what structure of question paper you are going to solve in that 3 hours of exam, that will help you. Okay. So it will be a good idea to practice some previous year's board papers. Okay, Rabia?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So do you have any question till now? Anything you want to ask?
No, sir, not really.
I think you want to clarify? No? Okay, perfect. So just quickly summarizing, we have studied evolution of life forms, animals, plants, both. We also studied evidences of that evolution. And till now, whatever evidences, processes, everything that we were talking about, the examples we were taking was mostly other kind of life forms, though all of that also is applicable to human. But we were not taking any human examples, except for a few where we talked about homologous organs. So we compared a human limb with other mammalian limbs. Um, but in general, we were sticking to evidences and studies from natural sciences uh, and life forms which were non-human. So obviously, the next very important question is, what about humans? Do humans also evolved like other organisms, or they were just put in place, or they just appeared from somewhere? So to answer this question, it requires lots of different fields giving you evidence so that you can say that, yes, humans seem to be a part. And some of these evidences we have already talked about, like biochemical evidences, where we know that the genetic material and the genes that we have are highly conserved with other primates, especially chimpanzees. And hence chimpanzees we call as the closest living relatives of humans in evolution. Okay, the fact that they are closest to us does not mean that we evolved from them or they evolved from us or diverged from us. We both the groups diverged very early and bifurcated to give two different kind of organisms. Chimpanzees, where they live in the kind of pressure, selection pressures they live, they have evolved for that. They're also very intelligent beings, not as great as humans in many aspects, but even better than human in some aspects. We'll talk about it later sometime, but focusing on human, uh, lack of these kind of discussions about human evolution lead to increasing misconception that human is just one special entity. There is nothing like human. The closest thing, which is chimpanzee, looks very different from human if you compare them together. They are very animal like apes. Apes basically, they are greater apes, and we are hominid or human-like. But when we talk about human evolution itself, we realize that now we have evidences to say that Homo sapiens were not the only species of humans that have lived on the planet. And things like this are important to discuss because that tells that in the genus Homo, there's only one species, sapiens, at the moment on the planet, but that was not the case always. Okay, so primates, basically, to which even chimpanzees, monkeys, baboons, gibbons, gorillas, orangutans, they all belong, are higher primates. Somewhere around 15 million years ago, okay, there were two different kinds of groups of animals existing, and we have their fossil records through which we know that they existed. And we now name them Ramapithecus and Dryopithecus. Okay, second one was Dryopithecus. So the interesting thing is that Ramapithecus were more human-like in their characteristics, and Dryopithecus were more ape-like. Okay. Now clearly this branched went on to give rise to many ape-like, like the apes that we have. So when we say that it continuously kept branching and branching, and as a result, you will find at the very end where we have chimpanzees. They belong from this group of organisms. But then Ramapithecus, they also went through the same kind of thing, because evolution is through branching descent. That's what Darwin also hypothesized and found some observational evidences, and now we have various evidences to support it. So Ramapithecus were more ape-like, and sorry, Ramapithecus were more human-like, and they gave rise to the modern human over time. But that was not a one-step process. It had many things in between. Now, one problem with studying human evolution, or the way human evolution is taught in books, first, it's not taught properly in books. It's just, out of necessity, there is just one paragraph in your book. So you just have to remember a few names, and that's all. So it says that the earliest of the fossils, which were human-like organisms, were present in Eastern Africa, right? And they were very small. I remember someone asked this question in class. I don't know. So we have Aisha and Parker also joining in. Good evening, Aisha, and good evening, Parker. How are you both doing? Yeah, good evening. So we're just finishing this small bit of part left in evolution, human evolution. So someone asked in the class a few class ago that were the humans of the past very tall, very big in evolution, right? So if we talk about the other species, they were not, because the first, so this is around 15 million years ago. Things kept changing, but didn't change very drastically until around 4 million years ago. So for around 10 to 11 million years, there were subtle, small changes, but no major shift in the paradigm kind of a change. Ramapithecus were there, Dryopithecus were there, and there was no concept of civilization. We all were living in, they all were living in forests like wild animal. The social groups were not there. It was all just, like how do animals live, or even social animals live, like that. There was no social construct like we have now. So it's very difficult to imagine that they were anything like human. So when I say human like, They didn't even look like human. But when I say human-like, it was characteristics or anatomies or physiology. Okay. So Ramapithecus slowly gave rise to more hominid features emerging, and around 3 to 4 million years ago, in the Eastern Africa, we have evidences of uh, first human-like primates. So I should write here more human-like, and this is more ape-like. And then 3 to 4 million years ago, the fossils that we have were human-like primates. So from this point onwards, we say that this is the time period from where human evolution really started. Why I say this? Because if let's say uh, whatever existed before 4 million years ago in time, you will never see anything like humans on the planet. Okay, so anything like human could come from this point onward. So the first human-like primates fossils date back to 3 to 4 million years ago. As we go ahead in time, around 2 million years ago, we have fossils of a group, a particular group called Australopithecus. Okay, Australopithecines. So Australopithecus, in the line of successions, they were after Ramapithecus, then came Australopithecus. There were many different kinds of Australopithecines, not just one. So that is very important thing to remember. And how do we know that they were different? Again, the evidence, the skull evidence is the skull size and shape, and the cranial capacity is different in all these species. So Australopithecus were there. Yeah, we have a question or something. Parker has a question. How did humans evolve and why? That's a brilliant question. How is what why they evolved is, I think, um, why is a question that you cannot ask uh, in the light of um, evidence. So if I say that why humans have 2 hands, why not 6? There's no answer to it. We have what we have, correct? How we have 2 hands? So one answer, whatever answer we'll give to why, will be subjective to the evidences that we have at the moment. We cannot say that can there never be a higher form of life with like 4 hands? I don't know. Like maybe in some galaxy, some planet, there are human-like organisms with 4 hands and 4 legs. But the thing is to imagine how they will live on planet Earth, all the evidence that we have. So science follows a thing called, you develop a structure to form a function. Now humans have 2 hands and 2 legs because that structure is enough to follow the function that you need to perform the function that you are performing. So there are babies which are born with extra limbs or additional fingers, but all those are anomalies. But it tells you that there can be a human with 4 limbs. The thing is that human won't be functionally better off. So it won't have any advantage. That's why when life evolved, whatever was optimal, why we have only 2 eyes, why not 4? If we had 2 eyes at the back of our head also, we would have seen 360-degree. We just need a bigger brain. Like from signal from 2 eyes come to the optic lobe, we process it, make bigger optic lobe and have multiple eyes throughout and we can see 360-degree all this at the same time. But then again, it does not serve that function that you need. If you like having 2 eyes at the back will have a lot of other problems. So the question why humans evolved is can't be answered truly by the like in science, because it's very philosophical kind of a question. But how humans evolved, we know. And did they really evolve? Is it true that they evolved, or they are something special and very different from all other life forms? Uh, the answer to that is yes, humans evolved, and humans are no special from any other form of life forms on the planet. And the evidence of that I'll just discuss with you in the bit. Okay, Parker, does that answer your question? So we can answer how, not necessarily why, because you understood, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So it all started somewhere around 3 to 4 million years ago, where human-like primates started showing up. And 2 million years ago, Australopithecines, a group of human-like, very short, and these were very, very short organisms. They were not more than 4 feet tall and very light, like monkeys only. Not like monkeys. Monkeys are also very different from how they used to look. So 2 million years ago, they were Australopithecines, and they also lived around in the East African grasslands. Now, the important thing to remember is they used to live in grasslands. Okay, now when you live in grasslands, you have tall grasses, and you are 4 feet. If you are 4 feet tall, you are walking among the bushes and grasses. Now, evidence shows that evidence is the bone and the teeth. Evidences show that, and also when their fossils were found from that same age, there are tools that have been found. It shows that they used weapons like stone weapons to hunt. Okay, but they were not hunting primarily to eat the flesh. So they were not flesh eaters at till this point of time. They were hunting probably for other things. Maybe they were eating, flesh once in a while if there was nothing else to eat, but majorly they restricted their diet to fruits, and their diet was vegetarian. How do we know that? From from current set of organisms, if you look at the teeth that herbivorous and carnivorous organisms have, it will tell you which organism has evolved to be a herbivorous, and which ones are carnivorous. So canines are a characteristic feature. Incisors and canines are a characteristic features of meat eaters. Meat eaters. Okay. Whereas if you look at a cattle, the grazing animals that does not eat meat, they do not have canines in their dentine. Humans have canines, okay, but they are not as developed as the canines of a cat or a dog, or this family, cat family and dog family. Anyway, so they were mostly, you would like to write, Australopithecines were, they used to hunt, but they were mostly fruit eaters, or vegetarian in their diet. Okay. During the same time also, some of the bones that were discovered. So if you look at a human skeleton, you will see that how beautifully we have evolved to be bipedal. Now, till Australopithecus, they were not bipedal. Like they could just stand if needed on two like back appendages, like 2 feet. But that doesn't mean that they are bipedal. For that matter, you can even train a dog or a cat to stand on two hind legs or hind feet. Gorillas are kind of not completely, but to some extent bipedal. They can walk to some extent. But when I say a proper bipedal, I mean the two hands are completely free. We never use these to walk. Humans never use the two hands to walk. Only, the toddlers, the babies, infants use it for some time, and then they learn to stand erect, because our anatomy is very helpful to be bipedal. So scientists realized that it's not just Australopithecus that were there. Something else was there, because some bones were very different from Australopithecus. And this one were, the bones were more helpful or more accustomed to be bipedal. And this was the first human-like creature, the first hominid, we call. And from here onwards, you will start seeing the genus Homo, which is Homo habilis. Homo habilis, if you want to imagine, just imagine something like a small chimpanzee, which could uh, start being bipedal, but still was not completely bipedal. So, but the genus Homo started, and we know that Homo habilis is one of the species in the genus Homo, like Homo sapiens. We are Homo sapiens. So we have in the same genus something that is extinct now called Homo habilis. They used to live long, long ago. And first human beings, or the first hominids, okay? And they had a very small cranial capacity. They had a very small brain. The brain was somewhere around just 600 to 800 cc. And they also did not eat meat much because their dentine in their skull also tells you that they were not meat eaters. Okay. And so they were also um, depending on fruits or tubers or things like that. Okay. Then from this point onwards, we have a lot of different evidences. We have evidence of the Java man, which we call as um, fossils from Java, which was, I think, discovered in the late 19th century. Yeah, 200, more than 200 years ago, maybe. And these were the fossils of Homo erectus. Now, again, another Homo. So you must have seen pictures of Homo erectus somewhere in evolution books. What does the word erect means? You can guess now. So what has happened here? I'll tell you all the time frames where they were in a graph based on some evidence. What do we mean by erectus, people? Erect means straight, right? So Homo erectus were first first species in the genus Homo, and they were living around 1 to 1.5 million years ago. So you can see earlier, to begin with, it was very slow, but from here, very fast species started diverging, because once you get that stone rolling, it becomes easier, you know, for speciation to happen, it seems like. So 1.5 million years ago, Homo erectus were on the planet because their fossils date back to that era. And they had large brains. It was not that the only thing that changed was their posture. The other thing that also changed was their skull size and capacity. So habilis were around 800, 600 to 800 cc. Erectus were the first one to touch 900 cc of cranial capacity. 900 cc means bigger brains, right? Just keep writing these few things around that. And then we also have, yes, yes, Parker, go ahead, go ahead. You have a question?
What is CP?
I can't hear you. Your voice is very feeble.
What is CP?
Would you like to speak a little loud? What is C? You're asking what is CC? It's the metric to measure volume. You know, even in cars and bikes, you know that this car has 2000 cc engine, which means how much capacity in that engine can have. Cubic centimeters. I'm sorry. So 1 cc is, um, imagine a cube. Okay, let's make a cube. So this is a cube, okay? If all the sides of this cube is 1 centimeter, so a cube of 1 centimeter, the volume that it will hold is 1 cc. Does that make sense, Parker? Yeah. So if I say 900 cc, it is the equivalent volume of 900 such cubes. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. So the Homo erectus were, they started showing signs and evidences that they were the first true meat eaters. So in the Homo erectus skull, you will see features that tells you that they were meat eaters. Okay. And then we have evidences of Neanderthals, which are more recent, and Neanderthals look very, very similar to humans. So Neanderthals, no more, they were Homo neanderthaliensis. So they were also very close to humans. And in fact, they were living and sharing the planet with Homo sapiens. And we have fossil evidences of both Homo sapiens and Homo neanderthals from the same time period. And they had huge brains, 1400 cc. And this is probably the biggest brain that human evolution has seen. Okay. So currently, if you look at human brains in Homo sapiens, it maximum goes to 1200 cc or 1300 cc, but Neanderthals even had slightly bigger brains than Homo sapiens. But here comes the question that if Neanderthal has the biggest brain, why they got extinct and sapiens stayed? Now the one thing is, we have an organ, we have a brain region called cerebellum. You know about cerebellum? You have studied cerebellum, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What is cerebellum?
It's
What do
like a part of our brain.
Yeah, where is it? And what does it do? Or what do you know about it? Like just some outline, overline, not in detail. We call it the brain of the brain, or the the most advanced brain part of the brain. It is at the back of our heads, right? It looks like a broccoli kind of a structure, and lots and neurons are densely packed in it. Cerebellum helps us to do all the precision work. When you learn writing, or all the precision work like riding, balancing yourself while you're walking, and riding a bicycle, all the precision work, right, learning how to play a guitar or something, it's facilitated by cerebellum. So it helps us to do balancing and precision. And that is the area which is affected uh, when someone consumes alcohol. And that's why if you'll see people who are high on alcohol, they are trippy, right? Versus if they are high on other kind of drugs, not all forms of intoxications lead you to being trippy and drowsy. Some stimulate, okay? Like caffeine present in coffees and tea, it stimulates you. It doesn't make you go slow and drowsy. Alcohol is a not a stimulant, it is a depressant. So it will slow down brain functions. And similarly, there are other intoxications that either will stimulate or slow down bodily functions. So Neanderthals, the one thing is that Neanderthals had bigger brains, but mostly it was the optical area, the processing area, but maybe they didn't have that many neurons that Homo sapiens have in the cerebellum, or in the hippocampus, or in the learning and memory center. So were they as intelligent as sapiens? We don't know, because no one has done a IQ test on them. But looking at their genes, we know that they were they were, if not more, they were as good as humans were. And in a fierce, constant, long, million years long battle, thousands year long battle, because we and them both were competing for similar resources. We outcompeted and sapiens lived and Neanderthals died. But the interesting thing is, Homo sapiens, many Homo sapiens used to live in close vicinities and close connections with Neanderthals to an extent that now we have evidences that suggest. And if you remember last year's Nobel Prize, which was given to Pablo Sante, who actually sequenced the whole genome of Neanderthals, it proves that humans also have a fraction of Neanderthal DNA in their genome, all of us, which means not all of us, but some groups on of sapiens which never came in contact with Neanderthals don't have it that much, but most of us have Neanderthal genome in our DNA, which means that there was a cross species reproduction also that happened in that period. Okay, they were so close, both culturally and both physiologically. So having Neanderthal DNA in our genome uh, tells you about that there was cross connections. Okay, and then we have so Neanderthal started all the culture and rituals. For the first time, we got evidences uh, of cultures like giving proper burial to their deads. Okay, this was started by Neanderthals. So Neanderthal used to make burial grounds. They used to, put other things with the burial ground. They used to live together, talk to each other, communicate effectively, hunt in groups. They also used to cover their bodies by a hide skin. Okay, like when they used to hunt animals, they used to cover their body with hide skins. So this is what we know about humans. Like even in books and depictions, when we talk about early man used to cover their body with animal skin, and they used to do all these things. So that's probably not Homo sapiens. That's Homo neanderthals. Okay, and then between 75,000 years, around 75,000 years ago, the modern Homo sapiens were at peak. Okay, which is like even more than that. So, but we have evidences that go till 75,000 years ago, saying that Homo sapiens started ruling the planet, and by this time, other species of the genus Homo were very less, or some were probably extinct by then, and humans started ruling and making a mark by starting cave paintings. We have evidences of cave paintings that go as back as 20,000 years ago. Even in India only, we have found caves where 20,000 years ago, Homo sapiens had cave paintings. They started agriculture and settlement around the same time in different parts of the world. So human settlement started somewhere around 10,000 years ago, and uh, uh, before that, we had agriculture that humans started doing. And agriculture was a major reason for settlement. Why humans were wanderers is that we see that when we don't have any evidence of agriculture, we also don't have evidence of settlements, because it makes sense. If you are hunter gatherers, then what you will rely on is wherever you will get food, you will go there. When season will change, you will change your location. So you will move in herds, in groups, but you will wander from one place to another to gather or hunt for food, and keep doing that. Once humans realize that there are certain plants we can grow in large quantities on a piece of land, we first need to clear a piece of land, put these seeds or put these plants, and the fruit of these plants we can eat. And we can do that for a season. So they settled where these plants were. So the first kind of agriculture was what not like humans started from the seeds. Human didn't know that you have to sow the seeds. The first kind of agriculture was they found a land where these kind of plants were already growing, and then their products could be used. So they settled around it, and they used to harvest the fruit or the produce. So this is how they started settling in, and the evidences also match with the beginning of agriculture. And after that, Homo sapiens, whatever is the modern history that we are Homo sapiens. But when books teach all of that from Ramapithecus to Homo sapiens, they often write it in a linear fashion. Ramapithecus, Australopithecus, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo neanderthals, Homo sapiens. So we think that each successive one evolved from the predecessor only. It is true that it came, but it's not like when all Ramapithecus were gone. It's not like when Homo sapiens were there, no Neanderthal was there. And when all Neanderthals converted into Homo sapiens, or all Homo erectus converted into, transformed into Neanderthals, it was not like that. And this is where, look at this picture for a moment. I took this from Encyclopedia Britannica, and this picture very beautifully, on the basis of skull evidences of all these species, tells us about the timeline in which they existed. So the y-axis is millions of years ago, and it goes as back as 4 million years ago, which where I have told you the first human-like primates started coming up, and around 2 million years ago, Australopithecus were at their peak. So if we look here, you will see that this is 2 million years ago, and between 4 and 2 million years ago, you have a lot of Australopithecus species, right? Australopithecus gari, Australopithecus africanus, Australopithecus afarensis, and Australopithecus boisei, Australopithecus robustus. These five, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the fifth one, the skull is not shown here, but these five, oh, I think it's this one. Yeah, these are all Australopithecus, and you can see that they live for till a very long period. Some Australopithecus species, let's come here. I'll use blue now, and this green line shows you from which point to which point they used to, they survived, or they lived, or we have their fossil evidences. So you can see that somewhere around 4 million years ago to till here, right? Here, which is around 1.5, right? 1.5 million years ago, we have one or the other kind of Australopithecine living, right? And at the same time, you also have Homo habilis. Now see Homo habilis, this is Homo habilis period, somewhere around, 2.5 to 1.5. So Homo habilis share the same timeline as shared by Australopithecus boisei. So two Homo species, two kind of hominids used to live. And as we go forward, this is on the x-axis, you have their brain capacities. So you will see the biggest brain still is not of Homo sapiens. Remember I told you just now, it is Homo neanderthals, somewhere around, more than 1400 to 1500 here in this region, the skull, where the skull is put. Homo sapiens come here. Okay, they overlap a little, but on an average, we have slightly smaller brains than Neanderthals. And you can also see it in the shape. Pay attention to the shape. You see that this is a Homo sapiens skull, like our skulls. And it's true that even if you notice in your head, notice that the back part of the skull, it has a dome which has been tapered, like polished kind of, and it's very streamlined, right? It's like this. But if you see a Neanderthal's head, it's not flat at the back. It still has a oblong head at the back. Make sense? Do you understand that? So this extra region we lack, we don't have. But if you look on the front, from where the eyes end, here where the eyes end, we have a very high head rise. After our eyes, we have a proper forehead. And this is where our frontal cortex is. This is where the processing part of the brain is. So it proves that Homo neanderthals, the reason that they had a big cranial capacity was could be two. It doesn't mean that they have a better brain or a bigger brain. They had a bigger capacity, but their frontal lobe was smaller, and the part of the brain mostly was at the back, like in this region here. But for us, the brain is here. This is our brain. Okay. But yes, they had a slightly bigger brain, but that doesn't mean that they have those neurons that are useful and helpful to process information and be better in our nature, to be able to do maths, to be able to do science, to be able to understand the logic, to be able to make tools, better tools. I think Homo sapiens were better than Neanderthals in all that, even with a smaller brain, and also slightly smaller, not that much. And also, uh, maybe we had more neurons packed together densely than Neanderthals. But we can't say for sure because we don't have their brain samples. We just have the skull sample. And as you go back in time, you will see that they had very small, like for that matter, this one, this particular uh, member, which is Australopithecus, you see that where the eyes end, it has a very tiny brain, right? You go to Australopithecus robustus, even tinier brain. Habilis also have small brains, and they have kind of compared it with present chimpanzees and gorillas. Now look, the chimpanzee also share some features with Australopithecus and habilis, right? What are those features? Very long face. So the face will be long, huge jaws. So you see, if I divide this skull into two parts, the lower half is just jaw, which is not for true for a human. Humans also have jaws, but that is not too much of our face. Our jaws have been shortened. We don't. So look here. If I if I cut this skull into two parts like this is our jaw, but still the major part of our head is not the jaws. So our jaws has shrunken and our brain has become bigger. In case of chimpanzees, the brain is smaller, but the jaw is bigger. And why is that? This is because chimpanzees are great hunters and they don't eat cooked food. As we go ahead, it's not just one thing that shaped human evolution, it's multiple things. As we go ahead, Homo sapiens started harnessing the power of fire, and they realized that cooked food or cooked meat or anything cooked is better than raw. So tubers, for example, potato is a very soft tuber in today's world because it's domesticated. It is a domesticated crop. But the ancestral plants from where to potato comes, those are very hard tubers. To chew that, to cut that, you need very, very hard muscles in the jaw, and the jaw teeth has to be bigger. So that's evident in chimpanzee skull and also in the gorilla skull. See, huge jaw and tiny brains, right? So similarly, earlier humans had the similar features, and as they went ahead, their brains started becoming bigger and jaw started becoming smaller, which is evident from these skull things. Another thing important is look at Homo erectus. Homo erectus was one of the most successful like homos or members of the genus Homos because they lived for almost around 2 million years to, let's say here, let's say very much till the present, not in terms of millions of years. If it is 0 and this is 1, probably this is 0.2, right? So just 0.2 million years ago, they all went extinct. But see that this scale, the time frame that they share, they share it with Homo heidelbergensis. This is not in your NCRT, but this is another humans which is very close to Homo sapiens. Heidelbergensis and Neanderthal both have big skulls like human and smaller jaws. And if you pay attention, this timeline is shared by Homo sapiens. Can you see? So Homo sapiens, when Homo sapiens came and evolved, there were already Homo erectus, there was also Homo heidelbergensis, and of course, there was Homo neanderthalensis. Homo neanderthals were very close to us, and we also have their DNA in our DNA. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, at least these 4 species used to live together, at the same time. When I say together, in time frame, not together means like at the same place, because you will know that tiger, lions, cheetah, they all don't live in the same place, though they like a tiger, lion, and panther, leopard, they all belong to same genus, Leo, but different species, and they don't live together because they have to compete for the same resources. Similarly, humans lived in the same time, probably not in the same place. The only evidence that says that two different Homo species that live together were Neanderthals and Sapiens, because we see genetic exchange. But is it clear now that at one point of time, Earth had multiple Homo species on it, right? But over the time, due to competition, fierce competition, and interspecies conflicts, only Sapiens survived, and that's why they only touch this finish line of 0, which is present, and others went extinct. And see here, Neanderthals lived, you can say, 1 centimeter before the finish line, kind of. They were there very, very recent. Okay. So does this make sense, everyone? Do you have any questions with respect to human evolution? Yeah. So this tells us that human evolution is not linear. It's not like one and then the other became and then it transformed into other. It's branching. At one point of time, there were multiple Homo species. And it also tells us that just like chimpanzee and gorillas come from the branch of Dryopithecus, we come from the branch of Ramapithecus, and we are no special in this on this planet. We are just a very fortunate species that happen to get all those mutations and genetic changes and natural selection that made us what we are. So we owe some humility. We have to be humble, and we have to think that we are just part of the planet. We don't own it. We are not something very special. We are not something to control the destiny of the planet, or we sometimes give too much importance to us, I feel, as a species. The only way we should give ourselves importance is that we have to be more responsible because we have the best brain in terms of cognitive capacity. Okay, there are even better brains than humans, which I feel. When I say better brains, we also have to define in what context. We have better brains in cognitive capabilities and creative capabilities. Bats have better brains because they can echolocate with their brain. We can't. There are fish that can sense sonar. We can't. um, there are organisms that can communicate through waves. We can't. We need to speak and hear. But yes, so our cognitive capability, our intelligence is the key of our survival. Perfect. So this is the last part, and just read this paragraph from your textbook. It's very short and simple, but I wanted to give you a flavor of how wide and diverse and in depth the field of human evolution is, and evidences that we have. If you people want to learn more, you can go to there's something called the Smithsonian Institute of Human Origins that talks about all the evidences. It has a beautiful collection of all evidences, not just fossil, but also behavioral, also physiological evidences that we have for human evolution. It's called Smithsonian Institute of Human Origin. So it studies human origin and human evolution in detail. Okay, perfect. So anyone has a question from evolution chapter? Aisha, Parker, Rabia? Cool. So let me give you a 2-minute break to change your mindset, wrap up everything that we have studied till now as a concept. Just close your eyes, think of genetics and evolution together. And in the meanwhile, let me share. So I'm going to connect whatever we have studied in genetics to, to a chapter called biotechnology, right? We have, wait, yeah. Okay, you all can see the screen again.
Yes, sir.
So, okay, so just give me a head count, Aisha, Parker, and Rabia. In all, in all of your schools, this chapter is done. It's ongoing. What is the status? Parker says ongoing. Parker, are you saying ongoing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what about Aisha and Rabia?
Yes, sir. It's done in my school.
Done. Okay, and Aisha?
Ongoing.
Ongoing. So there is a reason I'm first taking this chapter and I'm leaving a chapter in between. I will come back to that because those are mostly chapters that apply the knowledge that we gathered in genetics and talks about disease and things. We'll come to it, but first let's apply the concepts of genetics to understand biotechnology. So again, as we start in today's class, I'm going to talk about some fundamentals. So when I say biotechnology, we'll come to principle and processes later, but this term is made up of two terms. Bio, let's write it again. Biotechnology. So what does the word bio means? We'll come to technology later. Bio, life or living, right? Let's say life, perfect. And technology, logy means study. The word technology comes from the study of techniques. Techniques and logic together makes technology. What does what? So it is the study of techniques. And techniques we all know are advances or discoveries that we make, which makes us invent new things, new machines, new methods to do science, right? So this term says that we are using life or components of life to develop new things. Make sense? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Now, what are the components of life that we can use to develop anything? What is one thing about life that if we understand and if we can harness it, then we can do a lot of things? What is the most powerful thing about life? Yes? Cell. Yes, perfect. You're very close. A cell. So if I can harness the power of a cell, basically what I'm trying to say is if I can understand a cell so well, it's like a poetry. Okay. If we understand a cell and its function so good that we can manipulate it to do something or to produce something that it was not doing before, that will be great, no? That's like playing, it's like uh, playing very powerful. Like in scientific terms, when humans become very arrogant doing science, there's often a debate in science, um, not by scientists but by people in society, or even sometimes by scientists. Is like, can human become so powerful and intelligent that they can play God? So the concept of God is there in every culture. And the concept of God says that God created, again, the theory of creationism, and all powerful, almighty. So then people started asking the question. It's all philosophical debate happening in the field of education. And one who's an educationist, one who's educated, shouldn't get offended by questions, but should talk about it with some sense and logic and evidence. So then people started asking, what does God do? So God creates things. God creates life. Fair enough. So if a human can create a life, uh, will it be a god? Then the answers will be no, because humans have been creating life. Mothers give birth to babies, but it again all happens without us knowing. So we are not in control of it. We are just a vessel of doing that. Like, fair enough. So if without a mother, if human can create a life, will that be like playing God? Then like, yeah, maybe to some extent, but can we do it? And then humans did it. And that's called, cloning, or making any cell from any other kind of cell. You know that in today's world, it's possible to take your skin cell and make every cell of your body from that. So technically it's doable because we know how to do it. People have taken skin cells or fibroblasts and have made gametes from that, and then have fertilized those gametes to make clones. So no fertilization, natural fertilization, no two bodies required to produce life, just a single cell. So you use a cell, change it into something. So I'm using a skin cell, let's say epithelial cell or a fibroblast, which is not a sperm or a ovum, but I sprinkle some chemicals on it and they change into sperm or ovum. Now that's brilliant. So the question is, okay, are we playing God? It's like, but you're still taking cells, cell is already there. Then you cannot make a cell do anything that you want without, whatever you are changing is knowledge. And scientists are like, okay, cool. So if I make a cells from scratch, make it do something, then will I be playing God? So this is what kind of dialogues that, tussle as we go higher and higher and higher and higher in knowledge. So biotechnology is the field that has taken all the knowledge that we have about life forms, how a cell works, how a cell do whatever it does, and then we use it to make products that help humans. Okay, so it deals with techniques of using live organisms, living systems, and their enzymes, and make products which are useful to humans. So simply take knowledge, go into a factory, make something, and save humans. So earlier, in earlier times, um, every culture um, thought of an entity that's protecting you, and anything that happens to you. So earlier, if someone has a fever, um, they will probably pray to the god or the gods they believe in. If they get better, they will say that, okay, God listened and I got better. Today, if you have a fever, probably you will not, you know, go and disturb God for it. You know that, take a paracetamol, it's fine. So we have shifted the window that for these problems we can take care of. Earlier, even for a infection, a very small infection, before penicillin was invented by Alexander Fleming, people used to die because they had a pimple and that pimple got infected, or they had a bigger pimple on the knee or somewhere that got infected and pus developed, and then it spread into the whole leg, and either your leg has to be amputated or the person dies because of very high fever. Today, severe kinds of infection are also treated very well, right? We often give no attention to simple infections. We just take an antibiotic cream, apply it on our hands, and infection is gone within days. So we are not dying because of pimples anymore. We are not dying because of fever to that extent anymore. But we have shifted for bigger problems. We'll still look up to our faiths and beliefs. This is the same question. As we will move forward, as we are moving forward in science, are we moving away from the concept of there being a creator? So that's the debate that's constantly on and will always be on. But in between that debate, that's this small window of biotechnology is immensely useful to humans. And you should know how humans reached here. They reached here exactly the way I have taught you in genetics and evolution. We got to know that the most powerful thing inside a cell is the DNA, the genetic material. Now, once we know that, let's see how can we change it. Can we change the genetic material of a cell? Can I make a cell do something which it was not doing, but if it does that, it is useful for me? Giving an example, can I make a bacteria cell? If I culture millions of bacteria in a beaker, every bacteria is producing some or the other kind of toxin, enzyme, which is not at all useful for me, let's say. What I want is medicine. So I want insulin because I see that humans are suffering from diabetes. And if I give them insulin, they will manage their disease well. So can I change a bacteria cell to make insulin for me? Because it was not doing that earlier on its own, but I want it to do it. So can I command the bacteria cell that I, being your, genetic creator, I want you to make insulin for me. What should I do? So we have to do some changes in the DNA. Now, how to do that change? Genetic manipulation, in term we call it genetic engineering, where we change the chemistry of genetic material because we understand the chemistry of genetic material. I think we have a question in the chat. Why? But didn't they use insects for such problems before vaccines and medicines were invented? How did they die? Um, if I understand your question properly, Aisha, are you asking that before we invented vaccines, we were using traditional ways like what insects used to produce or what other plants used to produce? So there are traditional medicines in every culture, like um, the Indian culture has Ayurveda. You will find some Chinese Mandarin culture also having their traditional medicines much before Fleming found penicillin. The Unani culture is there, and all other cultures are there, right? Are you talking about those things? Yes, right. Okay, great. Yes, so you are right. So we knew, again, that comes from observation. So uh, if you read literature, I'm very interested in understanding literature of cultures. Every culture has had a concept of a healer, a shaman, or a rishi, or a healer, or someone who is wise and learned and who will go to the forest and bring something with him. You know, uh, he will just grind it and put some water, make it an ointment, and will heal people. Right? These were the earliest doctors that we had. And if you ask in the culture that how do you know that, so it's like my creator has given me these powers to heal, or I'm the healer because I know something that normal people don't. That's education. So today when a doctor gets the MBBS degree, the doctor doesn't say that I have powers, I can heal people. The doctor says I have been through a system of education which is open for all, and hence I can treat people. Earlier these people were self-learned, and hence the rest of the society used to see them as vessels of creators or gods, or they get their knowledge from gods, hence they are healers. So yes, but what these healers were doing, they know that if I use this tree's leaf, it will help me with some infection. But how? They don't know that. So they had no knowledge about how it works. For example, when people started treating diabetes to begin with, they realized, it was a doctor who realized that the pancreas of human makes something which is important. In a diabetic patient, that something is missing. Okay, so he called it, like, let's say, insulin. So the first kind of insulin was extracted from pig's pancreas. You you sacrifice hundreds of pigs, take out their pancreas, extract out the pancreas extract, which will also contain insulin, and then inject it into a human. There will be some reactions because pig is a different species, we are a different species, but the insulin part will work, and the symptoms of diabetes will come down. So that was the first evidence. Okay, if I take the extract of a pig pancreas, it will work in a human pancreas. But we didn't know what's happening mechanistically. So people realized, okay, it's a particular molecule. Then when the knowledge of genes and genetics kicked in, we figured out that exact gene that makes insulin, the gene of insulin. We cut it out from human, put it in a vector, put it in bacteria cell, and let the bacteria made that protein for us. And now we no longer sacrifice pigs. We don't go for, we don't go looking for some medicines in the forest anymore. We go to a medical store. So from going to a forest, plucking out some insects or collecting some insects, some animals, body parts, or some plants, products, and then making a concoction and treating something, we have come to an age where we exactly know what needs to be given if there is a fever, what needs to be given if there is an infection. We go to the store, buy it, and apply it. So basically, you understand the methodology is same, but knowledge has made it more clear, and we are in control to a great extent. Does that answer your question, Aisha?
Yeah.
Yeah. So earlier there was no biotechnology, but now there is. So let's define it. Just write down. It 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 is a process of using live organisms. It is the process of using live organisms and their products, or and their components, you should say, and their components to produce useful products for humans. Produce useful products for humans. Okay. So everything that we see around now in 21st century and 2023, which we use, is a I think is a result of biotechnology only. From bread to wine to curd to any medicine, lotion, any other thing, probiotics, antibiotics, all of these are result of biotechnology. Okay, because these are all microbe mediated processes. Okay, my voice is cracking, says Parker. Is my voice cracking for others as well?
That's cracking in between.
Is it fine now? Should I turn my camera off for some time?
It's,
Let's see. Let's see. Is it better now?
yes, it's fine.
Okay, so let's go with this for some time. So can you tell me some examples where you find the field of biotechnology useful? One is the most, I'll start with the most um, talked about thing, which is vaccine developing, right? The vaccines, they are a product of biotechnology, right? That saved the world from a pandemic just recently. Anything else that you know involves technology and biology together to make useful products? In the chapter reproduction, I taught you something that again gives us the power. So if a human cannot produce babies with the help of science, we can give that human that ability. Remember that? What was it called? Yes, it was called IVF, in vitro fertilization. If someone could do in vitro fertilization 2000 years ago, the world would have taken that person as a reincarnation or an angel sent by God. Today we call them reproductive scientists, like biotechnologists. So it's simple. Anything else? In vitro fertilization, vaccine. That's it. Two things. In genetics chapter, I also told you about something that if someone ago, nothing could have been done. The person or the baby will suffer and die. Today, we can cure a lot of genetic aberrations. My voice is cracking again. No, let me wait. Is it better now? My voice. I will repeat. So I told you in. Am I audible? Okay. Wait. Yeah, can you see the screen that I'm sharing? Okay. So I taught you in genetics chapter that now there is a way by which we can treat even genetic disorders, right? How do we do that? By correcting a defective gene. Couple of 100 years ago, it was not possible. But now we know something as gene therapy. Yes or no? Anything else? Vaccines, IVF techniques, gene therapies, or what else? Developing drugs, right? When I say drugs, it's the medicinal drugs, of course, and like insulin. Cheese, curd, most of the dairy products, probiotic drinks, everything around us is a product of biotechnology these days. Yes, you're right, Parker, antibiotics and all. Okay. So mostly, or one more thing that we have learned in schools about, about genetically modified crops, GMOs, high varieties. You know that? Am I, am I audible, people?
Yes.
Yeah. So high yielding varieties of crops, what are they? They are genetically modified crops. We have the knowledge to change their genetics and make them produce lots and lots of nutrition in the same plant, and that's called high yielding varieties, or in nutrient enriched crops. So GMOs, genetically modified organisms, are also the product of biotechnology, and that's very important for us to do agriculture and to provide food to the ever-growing population. So most of the things that we will study in biotechnology are um, divided into two things. One is agriculture, and the other is health. Right? Either we are doing biotechnology to a greater extent to improve health conditions of humans, or we are doing it for agriculture, but that is application part. First we have to understand whatever we are doing, how are we doing that? Make sense? So that is what the chapter is about. This first chapter, the principles of biotechnology. So first thing that we have to keep in mind before we start this chapter is that we have to understand it is very important when we get some knowledge how to use it with control, right? You cannot allow humans to use any knowledge without any limit or cap or any ethical guidelines. Make sense or no? Biotechnology is a powerful tool. It's very easy to convert it into a weapon of mass destruction. We can create things that can just destroy the planet, destroy humans, or we can use it to fight others. Bio wars is the greatest threat in today's time. So whenever we tweak with nature, there has to be some ethical uh, guidelines to do that. Humans should sit together and decide that, see, this is allowed, this is not allowed. We can clone organisms, but we will never clone humans. Human cloning is not allowed because that's unethical. I, no one has the right to make a clone of any other human. Okay, so human cloning is, uh, it can create disaster and chaos in society. So let's not do that. So cloning will only be restricted to organisms, but not. It will never be allowed for humans. That is why no scientists do human cloning at the moment. So there is this uh, body uh, in every country that looks for or regulates all the biotechnological or ethical considerations associated with biotechnological advancement. Okay. And to do that, we have to lay down some fundamentals about biotechnology. Principles on which this whole field is based. Whatever scientists do to make any product which is useful to humans, they are basically doing two things. Okay, two core techniques. So there are two that either or you change the genetic material itself. Okay, you change the DNA and RNA. When we make vaccines, we play with RNA. When we use bacteria to produce any drug, we play with the DNA of the bacteria. So this part is called genetic engineering. So there are people called genetic engineers. Basically, they are scientists who can do this. So genetic engineering basically is a collection of all the techniques which helps us to change or alter the chemistry of the genetic material. Okay. And then this changed genetic material is introduced into a host organism. And whatever this genetic material will, whatever changes we have made, it will show as the change in the phenotype of the organism. So suppose I have changed a gene and put it in an organism, that changed gene will show its phenotype. And that is what I wanted, right? So write down the first core technique is genetic engineering. Genetic engineering. And write down it is the collection of techniques to alter the chemistry of genetic material. Collection of techniques to alter the chemistry of genetic material. To introduce into the host organism and get the changed phenotype. To introduce into the host organism and get the changed phenotype. So either we are doing this, or as a part of biotechnology, we are either you engineer the genetic material itself, or you engineer the surrounding, the environment in which these experiments has to be done. So that is called bioprocess engineering.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, can you please repeat the sentence for genetic engineering?
Yeah. So genetic engineering is a collection of techniques to alter the chemistry of the genetic material. Collection of techniques to alter the chemistry of genetic materials and to introduce it into host organism. So we change the genetic material and then we introduce it into the host organism. To introduce it into the host organism, to get the changed phenotype. We change the genotype studied in genetics. If you change the genotype, there will be a changed phenotype. Yes. Capital T, capital T, genotype, tall, phenotype. Small t, genotype, short, phenotype. Correct? The second thing is bioprocess engineering. And uh, this includes maintaining contamination-free environment, maintaining contamination-free environment, yes. Is someone saying something? Is anyone saying something? No. Okay. Yes, Parker. Sorry, your voice is very low. I can't hear you.
Sir, I was saying I was not saying anything.
I still can't hear you. Aisha, could you hear Parker?
No.
Yeah, I think it's very feeble. Would you like to write? I'm just finishing in a couple of minutes. If it was about that, I'm assuming. If it is a question, please write in the chat, okay? So bioprocess engineering, write down maintaining contamination-free environment, to manufacture biotechnological products. To manufacture biotechnological products. Like vaccines, enzymes, antibiotics, to do IVF. Whatever we do, we need sterile environment. We don't want contamination because we are anyways playing with genetic material, microbe, another genetic material. Whatever we will do will not happen. Something else will happen. And that we don't want, right? You will not like a contaminated vaccine to get inside your body and then do more harm than it can help. It will not work. But we have to be 100% sure when we are making vaccines that the environment is sterile, and that when we do bioprocess engineering, we are not dealing with the genetic material itself like we were dealing in the case of genetic engineering. But to do genetic engineering, we need to first develop a sterile environment, and that comes under the part of bioprocess engineering. So to do any kind of this product making thing, we need both bioprocess properly done and genetic engineering properly done. And all the products that come out of biotechnology depends on these two core techniques. Is that clear, everyone? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, now for next class, what I want you to do is go back and revise simply replication and transcription. You know about replication, transcription. I already taught you, right? What is recombination? And because we will be using the same concepts, but now in a lab, in a test tube. That was happening inside an organism that I taught you. The same concepts we will use for our benefit as tools, and we will make some products. So from next class, we will start into tools of first we will start with how to make a vector in which we can put our modified genetic material. The vector is called a plasmid. And then we'll go to tools